hear what else is out.
Okay, so let's do Miracles from Heaven, which is the latest in the sort of ongoing trend for what are now referred to as faith-based movies. This is Jennifer Garner stars as Christy Bean, who's a churchgoer whose daughter starts to develop an illness, and she keeps having these kind of stomach cramps, and she keeps being taken to the doctor, but it appears that nobody is taking her seriously. Here's a clip.
This is our fourth time here.
This isn't acid reflux. Her throat's raw because she's been throwing up for weeks.
Well, Mom, I'm the doctor, and that's my diagnosis. So if you'll excuse me, I have the patients I need to see.
Excuse me, this is not acid reflux. She's not lactose intolerant. There's something wrong with our little girl.
Mrs. Beam, you need to calm down.
No, you calm down. You find me another doctor, you run some more tests. I'm not leaving this hospital until I know what's wrong with my daughter.
So the story then is that having not been taken seriously, they then discovered that actually there is something more wrong than they thought. This is going to require specialist treatment, and that specialist treatment is going to require travelling to somewhere far away, and it's going to be a financial problem, and it's going to be something which apparently doesn't, is going to have life-changing consequences. Now, you can tell from the title of the film that, the miracles are in the title, although they're not. It shouldn't be taken absolutely at face value. One of the interesting things that happened with this film is it's done surprisingly well already in America. Most of the reviews have sort of pointed out that Jennifer Garner is doing a good performance by her, and then after that, the sort of discussions of it have sort of fallen down into the ethics of faith-based filmmaking. And I've seen some very, very sniffy reviews.
Can I just ask you, when you say faith-based filmmaking, does that mean that these are evangelical films? Or does this mean that there is some faith stuff happening in the background?
Okay,
well, it's like
so in a way, that's exactly the point. So it's which of those are they? Okay, so in the case of this, there is no question that the film has an agenda, and that the film is pushing a certain agenda, and within the context of that, it's also doing some other things which are sort of slightly more unexpected. There is one moment in which the mother goes to church, where she is told by some of the people at church that the healing isn't working, and the reason the healing isn't working must be that there is some form of hidden sin that may be her, or maybe her husband, or may indeed be in this, and she then feels completely estranged from things. So that's going on all the way through it. There's also been some questioning of the truth or otherwise of the story, which is always the case, and one can make one's own inquiries into that. The question that I would ask is, does it stand up as a drama? And the answer is, to a certain extent, it's. I mean, there is a very good performance as the mother. I think in its later stages, it falls over into something which didn't work for me in the same way as a drama, as a piece of filmmaking, as opposed to a real show. But what I do think is that people talk about films having agendas and films having a perspective. And the fact is, everything does. Everything that you see has a story, has a thing that it's selling, a message that it's selling.
Ken Loach has an agenda.
Exactly. And actually, some people would criticise Ken Loach for having an agenda. They say, well, you make these films which you think these things. And I remember you and I, years and years ago, we went to see Brassed Off. And we loved Brassed Off, and there was a question about whether or not Brassed Off was going to be, I think, a Radio 1 movie of the month. And there was then some discussion about whether or not it was a film which had a clear message. There's a lovely moment. I think is it a Woody Allen film in which a film is playing out, and there's actually a thing which comes up. It goes author's message, author's message, author's message. All I want to say is, firstly, I thought the film itself was moderately well made. I think I'm not a huge fan of it, but I certainly didn't mind it. There are moments in it when it affected me and touched me, and there are moments in it when I felt alienated and separated from it. But I think it's a perfectly adequate piece of filmmaking for the most part. I think beyond that, the question of how one responds to it is often to do with whether or not one feels sympathy with the message. And this draws me back to earlier on in the show. We were talking about the Michael Moore film.
I was going to mention that.
And I said, thank you, sorry, great minds think alike. And I said, the irony of this is that in the case of the Michael Moore film is basically, in terms of me playing to the choir, no pun intended, because it's saying things that I believe in, that, actually, equal rights for women is a brilliant thing, and workers' rights is a brilliant thing, and treating your workforce with is a brilliant thing. And yet I'm watching it thinking, well, why is it therefore that I'm aggravated by the presence, the comic in inverted commas presence of Michael Moore wandering around with the flag doing this thing about this is a gag? And actually what it demonstrates is, in the end, it isn't just to do with whether you agree with what a movie is pushing, because all movies are pushing something, whether they think they are or not. It's to do with whether or not you think it works as a film. And my response to this would be, in places it works as a film. In other places, not so much.